Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So in today's video I will be working on this really awesome project that I've been really looking forward to making. So I will actually be making and binding my own notebook, but then in the traditional way. So I'm going to use different kind of tools and stuff I have lying around at home, so you can actually also follow and do it yourself without actually needing professional tools or expertise in to actually make your own book. This is going to be a relatively easy process. It's just going to take quite a long time, so I'm going to try and explain it as easy as possible and also try to reduce the time of filming so it doesn't become a 1 hour long video for you to watch. So what I'm going to use though in this project is faux leather or vegan leather, how some would call it. So it's actually an eco-friendly, more or less, or a vegan project, if we want to say that. I'm not vegan specifically, but I decided to try and use it with these kind of materials in order to also experiment a little bit. I know that most bookbinders use real leather, which has also a different technique of working with, but I'm going to try and adapt those techniques and trying to make this vegan leather look as much as possible as real leather, or give it as much as possible this antique look that is so characteristic of handmade books. So yeah, anyways, I'll talk more during the process so we can actually start right away. So I'll be using 130 GSM acid-free sketchbook paper. It's in a size A3, so what I want to do first is cut it and fold it to get an approximately A5 format. I'll also be sanding the edges off to get rid of that jagged line that just makes it look ugly. Also, by sanding instead of cutting, it gets a more soft and old-looking edge. This book will be made out of 10 bundles or signatures, made out of 8 pages each, making it 16 front and back in total. This means that for each signature I'll need 2 A3 pages. Once they're cut and folded, I place them one into the other to make the bundle. One is made and 9 to go. First, I want to prepare the sewing frame. Not sure what the technical name is though, but there are going to be the cords that keep the signatures together. I'm using 2 strands of jute rope twisted together to make it thicker, so it will be more visible once the leather is glued on and have a more medieval kind of vibe. I'm setting up 4 of them. The frame I'm using is from a simple shelf, so you can basically just use whatever square frame you got lying in the house. Then I have to make the sewing holes into the signatures. I'll use the pointy screwdriver from my IKEA set. Again, not a professional tool, but it does the job. So I'll need 4 holes for where the jute ropes go, and then 2 holes at 1 centimeter from the edge. You'll see later what these are for. So the other 4 can be positioned wherever you like, depending on how you want the book spine to look like. Finally, I can get to the sewing. Told you this was going to be long. I tried filming this also from a different angle just to try and make it more clear on how I do this. I'm using this double cotton sewing thread, which is thin but very resistant, and I'll start inserting the needle into the first hole. Doesn't matter if you start at top or bottom, and I make sure to leave a bit of length for closing up later. Then I exit the thread from the next hole and go in again into the same one, so that the thread goes around that rope. Then I repeat this with the following ropes, making sure everything stays tight. Once you go back in from the last rope, you exit the last hole and go on to the next signature. Now, once I'm back in the beginning, I can tie up the thread with the loose end I left, and then again repeat the process. And now at the end again, I'm going under the last bound signature with my needle, just to fasten everything together a bit better. And then I'll just keep on going like this for all the rest. Once all the bundles are sewn together, I can tie the two loose ends together and cut off the ropes, making sure to leave enough length for later. Next step is to add a first layer of glue to the spine to hold everything together. PVA or wood glue would work fine for this. In order to keep everything steady, I'm holding the book block in a makeshift press made out of 2 pieces of thick plywood and clamps. Once everything's dry, I try to give the spine a rounded shape by hammering the sides with, well, a hammer. I didn't have a rubber hammer, which is what I usually should be using here, so I used the cap that came with that IKEA set and put it on that hammer. I keep doing this until I'm satisfied with the roundness of the spine. Now it's time to add the end paper. Could have added it before the shaping, but oh well, never mind. So for this book I'm using this black textured cardstock. Just need to make sure it's of the same size as the book block, fold it and glue it into space. While doing this you want to avoid adding too much glue. Also, make sure that the pretty side is faced inwards, as the outer part will be glued to the cover. Then I'm adding a piece of thin cotton cloth on the spine with some more PVA glue. And then back into the press to let it dry. And now, nope, still not attaching the leather, we're first doing headbands. I'm using this piece of faux leather lace and 2 different colors of embroidery thread. Matching the end paper, I'm using black and light brown or goldish. This is a bit tricky. I'm going to try and explain this the easy way, but out there are YouTube tutorials that show you the exact process on how to do this, made by professionals, if you're interested. So I tried explaining the process, but it comes out really complicated, so I'm not gonna do that. And I'm going to put the link into the description box and on the screen of the video here, of the video I took this process from. So it's going to be much easier for you to understand if you're interested, as I'm really bad at explaining this and I'll just make it so confusing. Okay, so I have 2 pieces of plywood that are slightly bigger than the book block. These are the base of the cover. The bookbinding technique used here is the medieval case binding, meaning that the cover is directly attached to the book block. So I need to make holes at the position to where the ropes are. I'm then sanding the edges so that the rope can fit better into the cover. Then I'll insert the rope into those holes. And afterwards I can fray them so that they will be less noticeable once I glue everything on the end paper. And then, obviously, to keep everything in place, I add some more PVA glue. I put some baking sheets in between the cover and the end paper, close, do the same on the other side, and back into the press. And so finally this book is starting to look more like an actual book. So it's time to finally add the vegan leather. First things first, I'll have to glue the center of the piece to the book spine, again with some PVA glue. The faux leather acts really differently than real leather. It doesn't really stretch and doesn't stay in place, so the trick is to let the glue do all the work actually. meaning that I'll have to keep the shape in place with some rope and let it completely dry before removing it. So as you can see, the back is nice in place, and next I'm going to attach the rest of the leather to the covers. After drying the book in the press, I can glue the edges on the inside. So I'll first trim the edges and cut the corners. Then I use contact glue to attach the edges on the plywood. It dries way faster, so I have more control over it, and it also means that I can keep working on it without having to wait for too long. Then I fold the piece of leather on top of the spine inwards behind the headband. I add a bit of glue to hold it in place and use my folder to help me with it. And then I'm also adding a black elastic band. It's finally time to decorate the cover. I'm using green and brown acrylic paints to give the book that old look. It's the first time though that I'll be using green, so I hope it will come out okay. I only use the color as stains and not actually as paints, so the texture of vegan leather remains and it will look less artificial.
Okay, so the paint is dry and I added a layer of clear varnish spray since the acrylics don't stay on the faux leather, so a coating is absolutely a must. And now I'm also adding some other decoration. Then the details are done with deep gold gouache. This will also need coating later on. I went on and engraved a kind of frame on the front cover with a wood burner. This I will then fill in with more gold gouache. Once this is done, I can go on and glue the end pages onto the cover. And finally, as last, the corner protectors, which I will attach with some super glue just to make sure they stay in place. So here it is, the finished book. I will put it on sale on Etsy and put the link down in the description box below. Let me know what you think about it. I really like the nature effect of the brown and green mixed together. So yeah, this was it for today. I wish you a very nice day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!